the good news with technology is they tend to do it by themselves now, which is good and helps the community. Good to see everyone. Hope you're having a good week and hope you're having a good start to your Sunday morning. I'm going to be walking through the back of the bulletin with you, just giving you, excuse me, I'll get that out in a minute, a couple of reminders. You can see those listed on the back of your bulletin. The first thing I want to say is in regards to after the service, the Gallman family has invited you all to join them for a few moments. Just drop in and pray with them and wish them well as they begin this process of moving to Virginia. They're heading to Richmond to plant a Chinese church. And we want to continue to support them and pray for them as they have meant a lot to our congregation and our church family, really almost 2 years. And so just know that you are invited. As you see the address on the very back, it's 57 South Lyons, and they are just right behind the church. We are going to take up a love offering. I'm going to ask that just sometimes we use the renovation fund, those green envelopes. If you'll write, if you'd like to give to the Gallman family and support them, if you'll just write Daniel Gallman family, something that lets us know that money is to go to them. If you just want to include that with normal offering during the offertory time, that will be greatly appreciated by them. We want to continue to support them from time to time, and we don't want to just send them off and then never hear from them again. We want to partner with them and ask and see how can we be involved in their ministry and in their life. And I pray that this past Sunday, Daniel preached to us, and I pray that's not the last time he does that here. So we want to continue to support them, and yes, even financially this morning, if you will spend some time in prayer about how you can give to them, they greatly appreciate it, and Lord will be honored in that as we seek to serve them and help them however we can. Continue to remember the Annie Armstrong offering. Our goal is $800, I believe. I think I'm off the top of my head, $800. And pray about how you can get to that too. I kind of always mention those two special offerings, and they're big. They really. I've ranted and raved about offerings before, and some of the ones that come out, and they take slices of it to go here and there. The Annie Armstrong East offering is a tremendous offering, and it really does go to support the Great Commission and missionary work, and so pray for that offering and how you may get to that as well. Tomorrow, a reminder for Linda Hawkins Prayer Group, meeting at 5 in the Hayes Fellowship Building. Deacons meeting on Tuesday in the library. Join us for our Wednesday night Bible study. Now, you're not just invited, I mean, we want you there. Going through the book of Galatians, and it's been only 3 weeks in. We're taking our time going through that book and seeing a lot of truth, of course, in God's Word. And so, once you know you're more than invited, we'd love to have you join us if you're able. And then on Thursday, Joy Fellowship, I'll be having covered dishes and chicken. Always a good time there, and always enjoy the fellowship there. The people who come enjoy being there. So if you never come to Joy Fellowship, just consider it. Just come spend time with one another. And of course, there's food involved, and that's always a really good thing. So hope to see you there. Just some things going on this week. I want to go to the Lord in prayer, and I want to be excited about our time together this morning. We have a special duty when we join together. We have a special calling when we join together for this very purpose, and that's the act of worship. Let's be mindful of that in all that we do and all that we say while we're here. So let's go to Him in prayer. messages need to come with warning labels, and I'll just say that it's hard to preach on the parting of the Red Sea. And it's very difficult to preach on such an event in a calm manner. We're picking back up in Exodus 14, if you'd like to turn there, and I'm going to ask for a bit of grace and help this morning. I'm going to ask that you try to, at your best, run through some of the things we talked about 2 Sundays ago, and we were blessed. I was certainly blessed. I pray that you were too by Daniel's preaching last week. Very glad that he was able to do so and serve us in that way, and serve the Lord in that way, most importantly. We've had a gap between part 1 and part 2 of this message in Exodus 14, so I'm going to ask you to try to think back with some familiarity of what we had already gone through, and familiarity with your Sunday school, growing up in church, and that sort of thing. If not, I would encourage you to maybe go back this afternoon and start in chapter 13, really. If you want to really get the whole story, start in Exodus 1. It's the best place to begin. But in terms of just right here, Exodus 13, and read it, those 2 chapters, 13 and 14, to help build up our context. But I just want to give some reminders this morning. That's what I want to do. I want to give some reminders from this book and from this chapter and these 2 chapters, really. As you know, there's one reason, and many reasons I love the scriptures, and one of those reasons is there's just this endless treasure chest that you just continually get to put your hands in and pull out these riches. It's one reason you can go through a text. I can have this message. I can have these set verses from Exodus 14, and I could preach on Exodus 14 for your straight. And people, may ask, how do I recycle a sermon? Well, don't recycle a sermon, because you're going to find new stuff. You're going to have new things laid on your heart. And some people view that as, well, that means there's all kinds of different interpretations. No, not at all. It's just that there's so many truths to dig out of Scripture that I can't possibly put a lifetime of preaching into one morning. And so, as I'm asking God, what would you have? What would you have for me? What do I need to hear? What do I need to hear from my own personal life? And what do the people of Orrville need to hear? There's this big overall arching picture of everything pointing to Christ, which I truly believe. And if we were going to take the Bible, including the Old Testament, what is the Scripture about? It's about pointing us to Jesus and what He's done for us. All throughout the Old Testament, I see this on every page. That God alone saves, that He's responsible for salvation, that we are facing death, that we are facing destruction, that God does the work. And I see this as the big picture idea to be found in all Scripture. And you start finding all these sub-points. And you start finding these sub-ideas. And you start piecing together truths. And you start finding, this is why it's so popular to have a point A, point B, point C sermon, because you can keep going. You can have a Z. You find all these things throughout Scripture. They're not different interpretations. It's just that there's so much riches. There's so many jewels to be found in the treasures of Scripture. And I want to spend some time this morning looking at some, and that's the key word, some. And maybe this is a series that can be done all by itself on just Exodus 14, but for this morning, what I feel laid on my heart and what has been put on my heart as I read Scriptures and as I prepare and as I pray are some of the truths that God has given to us in His Word. I will tell you that I'm not a very captivating preacher. I'm not. I don't follow the standard model. I don't follow the standard model of, I call it sandbagging. It's where you hold back, hold back, hold back, hold back, and you build up, and at the end, boom! You deliver some haymaker that's the big point. I tend to put the cart before the horse a little bit. And the reason I do that is because I want us to be on the same page from the get-go. I want us to walk through it being on the same page. I don't want to throw in some confusion and keep you on the edge of your seat just to deliver a thing for you to leave here and feel good and then forget tomorrow. No, I want us to be saturated. That's just kind of how I approach the scriptures. And so I want to do that a little bit. As I'm saying, God, what do you want from me? In prayer, in preparation, God, what do you want from me? I see theme after theme after theme. But the one thing I cannot escape is this universal truth. God is going to be glorified. And I'm going to stop there, because you can start adding in things to the end of that sentence. Right now in your seat, you can begin adding things to the end of that sentence. God will be glorified in my life. God will be glorified in this church. God will be glorified in my work. God will be glorified in my marriage. You can do this almost infinitely. And those are good examples. But this morning, the one thing is just that. God will be glorified, period. No question. No alternatives. He will be glorified. He decides how. He decides in what form. He decides to what degree, if you want to word it that way. He decides his worship. He decides his glorification. We can talk about all these different things that make up what it means to glorify the Lord, but at the end of the day, it's on his terms, and he's going to have his way. He's going to be glorified in a way that suits him. The question is whether we're going to take part in it or not. And that's a weird question, because either way, we're going to take part in it. Are we willingly going to take part in it or not is the better question. Willingly. No matter what, it's going to happen. And so on our terms, we have a decision. Are we willingly going to take part in that glorification, or are we not? There's a problem with, it's not a problem for me, it's a problem with the world when they hear this type of language. The message you're going to hear this morning is one reason why the world does not like church. This is one reason the world does not understand church. They hear stuff like this, they may say, your God is so egotistical. Your God is so self-centered. The God of the Bible is all about himself. I just can't worship a God who thinks so highly of himself. Do you mean to tell me that I'm going to burn in hell forever, all because I won't bow down to some powerful being? He's that egotistical. The world says this all the time. If you don't think so, go talk to people. You will hear it time and time and time again. I just can't get on board with a God who is so full of himself, who thinks so much of himself. Well, I went and looked up the definition of egotistical. Here's the definition of egotistical, by the way. Maybe just need a reminder. Excessively conceited or absorbed in oneself, self-centered. And people will hear that, they think they're insulting God by calling him egotistical. And I want to fill you in on something. If you ever hear this in the world, anybody ever says, your God is so egotistical, don't be offended and say, I agree. He is egotistical. He is self-centered. He knows his value. He knows his worth. The reason egotistical is a, quote, bad word is because it's usually applied to humans. And guess what? We have no reason to be egotistical. We cannot justify our ego. He can, he doesn't even have to. He's God. He's not self-centered. He's the center of everything. He is. He simply is. He is so strong, so powerful, and so mighty that when talking to humans, and what should we call you? He simply says, I am. I am is his response. That is our God. Self-absorption does not even come close to how he feels about himself. There's no word to describe how self-centered our God is. People will say, what was God doing before creation? If he's eternal, what was he doing? He was enjoying the bliss of existence. He doesn't need us. We fail to realize this all the time. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need creation. He thinks so highly of himself that he found himself good to be shared with.
about that for a moment. We do not deserve relationship with Him. And He is so good and so compassionate that He said, I will share my goodness with something. That's how much He thinks of Himself. When you had children, did you do so because you said, you know what, I am so good that some youngling deserves to know that I'm better than them? No, of course not. Our God can actually do it and be justified in it. I'm so good, I will share myself with someone because not only am I worthy of it, I'm worthy of their worship. I'm the only thing in all existence, because I'm the only thing that exists that deserves worship. And so I will create. And if you're hearing that, you're thinking, what about love? Do you understand what that means to be loved by a God that wants to share Himself with us? Of course there's love involved. But He's still self-centered. He's still egotistical. And it's not an insult. It's a good thing that we serve a God who knows His value. Imagine serving a God who did not. Imagine serving a weak God who didn't know His own strength and might and power and value. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine serving a false God built on lies. Imagine serving a false God of self. Imagine waking up and knowing my life is a lie in what I worship. We don't. We wake up each morning serving a God who knows who He is and what He deserves. Knowing His strength, knowing His value, knowing His might and His majesty. And here's the thing. As a result of that knowledge that He has eternally, He will be glorified. Period. We're in Exodus 14. We're in this incredible event in which He is glorified. I want to see how He is glorified in this. Probably in a different way than what we usually might say when it comes to Israel and Egypt. Starting in verse 15, we left off with verse 14 last time. And at this point, Israel is between the desert and the sea. They're in a rough spot. The Egyptians are in pursuit. We're all in agreement, nod our heads. Yes, we're called up. That's as far as I'm going in terms of our context. I've got it heard. So this is where we're at, right? There's okay, I just need you. That's fine. Verse 15, it's all going to start coming back. We're just going to grease the wheels, and we're going to read for a little while. So let's just walk through this story like we did 2 weeks ago. Verse 15, Then the Lord said to Moses, Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. As for you, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, and the sons of Israel shall go through the midst of the sea on dry land. As for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, and I am honored through Pharaoh, through his chariots and his horsemen. The angel of God, who had been going before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. And there was a cloud along with the darkness, yet it gave light at night. Thus the one did not come near the other all night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. And the Lord swept the sea back by the strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry land, so the waters were divided. The sons of Israel went through the midst of the sea on the dry land, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Then the Egyptians took up the pursuit. And all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. At the morning watch, the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud and brought the army of the Egyptians into confusion. He caused their chariot wheels to swerve, and He made them drive with difficulty. So the Egyptians said, Let us flee from Israel, for the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians. Then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the waters may come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots, and over their horsemen. So So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. Then the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, even Pharaoh's entire army that had gone to the sea after them. Not even one of them remained. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. I'm going to say those last two verses for just a few minutes. I just wanted to get through the bulk of that story. What an incredible event. What an absolutely astonishing event that takes place here in Exodus 14. I want us to remember something. It's repeated in this text, but I want us to remember something early on in Exodus 14. Again, a lot of scripture this morning, as if that's a bad thing. Look back at verse 2. Let me read verses 2 through 4. I want us to recall something that is said from 2 weeks ago. Tell the sons of Israel to turn back and camp before Pi-Hahiroth between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal-Zephon, opposite it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, they are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. Thus I will harden Pharaoh's heart. He will chase after them. I will be honored through Pharaoh and his army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. And they did so. I'm amazed at how great of a storyteller God is. And the beauty is it's not just a story on paper. He actually acts in the world. And some people will hear about things in the world. They might sometimes describe circumstance to him when they shouldn't. And a lot of times they'll have this false idea, even when they're using the word incorrectly, they might say karma or cosmic justice or something like that. No, it's God's justice. He's very good at putting a story together with intention. And he does things on purpose, with great intention. And it's so easy to walk through this first few verses and say, oh, well, it's just places. It's just things. It's just places where he told them to go. No, there's more to it. There's an area here that you see, and the Lord tells Israel to camp there in front of Baal-Zephon. This is a mountainous area, a little mountain range, and it was named after the false prophet, or false god, I should say, Baal-Zephon. That's the name of a false god worshipped by Egypt, and then this mountain range is named after him. Now, again, I'm not... none of us have to be any kind of like military general to understand why this is a terrible idea. None of us have to be even experienced in combat to understand why this is a terrible idea to camp there. You've got the sea here, you have this area in between, and you have desert and mountain range. Why would you want to be stuck in the middle with an army coming to you? You have nowhere to go. And God says, camp right there. I want you camping right in front of Baal-Zephon. Why? Why is this such an important thing? And it comes down to God proving a point. It comes down to God seeking glory for himself. It comes down to God doing what he wants for his worship, for his glorification. Baal-Zephon was a god who was worshipped and was consulted, and their version of prayed to when it comes to the idea of prayer. He was the god you consulted when it came to traveling across the sea. He was a maritime false god. When there was important trading routes and places to go and places to be, you consulted with Baal-Zephon. You prayed to him for safe travels. You prayed to him for safe weather. You prayed to him that you would make it in the open seas and come back in one piece. He controlled the seas. He controlled the weather around the seas. He dictated how the event would go down, whether you would make it from point A to B and back or not. In their theology and their warped beliefs, that was Baal-Zephon. He was in control of these things. And so Egypt comes up to this point. They see Israel camp there. They say, are you kidding me? Easy pickings. They camped right in front of Baal-Zephon. Are they mad? And God hardens their heart. And in fury and bloodlust and rage, the Egyptians say, let's continue on. We got it right where we want it. Baal-zebub fights for us. Baal-zebub put them right into the trap, right where we want it. So let's go take care of the Israelites. All the while, God is saying to himself throughout this whole thing, I will be glorified. So you get to verse 27 and we read once more. So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. Even Pharaoh's entire army had gone into the sea after them. Not even one of them remained. This is, by the way, after Moses already told Israel, you will never see the Egyptians again. Despite their groveling, despite their complaining, despite their whining, he said, you'll never see the Egyptians again. We get to verse 27, and we get through verses 27 and 28, and we see that God is good on his promises, and we see an Egyptian army who knew that they had the Israelites right where they wanted them, and they're being swallowed up in these waters. And so you ask, I don't understand, what do you mean God is glorified in this? Did you know that non-believers can glorify God? Even if they never believe. Even if they never become believers, they can glorify God. Now, I didn't say they can worship, but they can glorify Him. They can bring glory to Him. You say, how? How is that possible? I want you to understand something. In that moment, the Egyptians are walking. This is perfect. It's just walls of water right here. They're walking through. And they're saying, we're in pursuit after. We've got them. We're having some trouble with our chairs. We're going to get to them. And as those waters start to come back in, knowing they were fully supported by Baal-zebub behind them, right? Their false god, in control of all the sea, and in control of all the weather, and in control of all these things, they see these walls begin to collapse. And then even if it's just for 5 seconds before their impending doom, they realize, we are wrong. This is the Lord. This is Yahweh. This is Israel's God. He fights for them. And even though they are going to death, completely apart and separated from Yahweh, even in that instance, it is the Lord Yahweh who takes a false god and decapitates him right in front of that Egyptian army and says, your false god is weak, I am God alone. And I will be glorified. And in that realization that there is one God and one God alone, these wicked, unrighteous, sick, twisted, vile group of men and women, soldiers, Pharaoh himself, they glorify God in their death. Because God will be glorified, one way or another. People say, how can you say this? How is He glorified in this? Because no one is going to steal glory from God. No one is going to come between God and His glory. Not one person, not one thing. And so the question is not, are we going to glorify Him? The question is, are we willingly going to glorify Him? He's going to receive it either way. And so most of the time, we walk through this text, and we say, we're Israel, let's put ourselves in Israel's, I almost said shoes, sandals. Let's put ourselves in Israel's sandals, and let's pretend that we're Israel, and that we're nothing like the Egyptians. We're the church, so obviously there's a natural connection. We see that in Scripture. Obviously, we're the heroes of this story. We're the obedient ones. Israel was not obedient. A lot of times we like to call ourselves Israel. I guess that's a good thing. There's a pure correlation between the two. Most of the time we're disobedient just as they were. But there's also truths to be found about ourselves in Egypt and in the Egyptian art. Whether we go with him or whether we refuse, God is willing to be glorified in our lives. Period. And people even say, well, is he glorified when people go to hell? Yes. He is. It's a sad truth, but it's true. The idea that someone goes to hell not knowing who the Lord is false, by the way. That whole idea of gnashing of teeth, it means a self-rage. They're so furious with themselves because they were wrong. They have no relationship with the Lord at that point. But listen, every person that has ever gone to hell realizes the mistake, and they live with it forever. They acknowledge that there is no God but God. And even in that, God is glorified when people understand who he is. And so again, I tell you, it's not a question of whether he's going to receive glory. In all honesty, the question is spun around back to us. We want to look at God and say, are you going to be glorified? And if so, you should do this and this and this for me. No. He's going to receive glory. The question should be pointed back to us, and it should be asked, what are we going to do about it? Whether we're willing to give it to him or whether it is squeezed out of us, we will glorify the Lord. It doesn't matter how, as long as he receives it. And so a lot of times we like to simply call ourselves Israel. And what I'm telling you is that it is not safe for us to say, we're Israel, we're Egypt, we're this. The important thing is that we take the truths that are found in here and understand that we can have this going on in our own lives and in our own church at any given moment, at any given point. We can be obedient. We can be disobedient. We are the ones who have been delivered. I pray that everyone in this room has been, who knows salvation. I pray that everyone knows salvation, understands that you are saved and nothing can come between that. I want you to know that you are saved. There might be some, I don't know, who has no clue. Maybe even says, I'm not. Might not admit it out loud to one another. But in their heart of hearts knows, I'm running. And I've been running. And I've never, once in my life, been obedient. I'm not saved. I don't know. And that's why these truths are so important. Because as non-believers, we feel and see and know, boy, something's got to change. And as believers, we see discipline. There are times where we need it. There's times I need it. Right now, I need it. At this moment. The instruction, conviction from the Lord. And he does this all the time. God does this. He paints these stories for us. He puts us in situations, and not just situations in which we are disciplined, but he puts us in situations that says, you want this? You want this sin? You want to run this direction? You want to go this route? You want to be disobedient to me? Go right ahead. You're not going to like how it is. It's going to be humiliating for you. Will God humiliate you? Yes, he will. He will crush us. And all just natural things in the world. You want to go run around your spouse for 5 years? Guess what? You're probably going to die. And not just because he flicked you and you fell into the sea or anything. There's these things called diseases. You run around your wife, your husband, for 5, 10 years, guess what? That's the way you go. You want to find yourself greedy for money? All you care about is money? He'll take that in an instant. You'll have nothing. You want to work for money? That be your God? He'll take it all. He'll show you. He'll use the exact same thing that you desire and want and show you that it's nothing. We want our identity to be found in grounds and buildings and things and numbers. He'll take it all. He'll take every bit of it. I promise. I promise he will. Today. listen to me, today, not this week, today, an average between 75 and 100 churches are closing their doors in America. Today. Not this year, not this month, this Sunday. This Sunday, now, between 75 and 100 churches are having their last service right at this moment. People say, how was he glorified in this though? How? And what caused it? How did they get there? What brought that on? Because they desired it. And he said, you want it? Is this what you want? So you shall have. And in that conviction and in that understanding and in that moment in which the doors do close and they say, it was you all along, yes, I can clearly see, even in that sadness, he says, good, I've got my glory. Now that you know. Now that you understand who is in control. A lot of times we like to get fearful. We get scared. We get scared about our spiritual malnourishment. We get scared about finances. We get scared about spiritual health of our own church. And we say, but God's got his hand in this. Guess what? He has his hand in it to keep it open or to close it. Either way, he will receive glory. And if the first thing you're hearing this morning is, pastor's giving up, wrong. The exact opposite. I will always put the glory of God before what I want. I will always put him before me, my decision making. I will always put him before my desires for this people and this place. But what I will not do is refuse to give him glory. I refuse to go down that route. Ever. Whether this place has 10 people or 10,000. He's going to get his glory. Are we going to be on board with it or not? Are we going to do whatever it takes that he receives it in the way that he desires? Or will he take it? Because he's worthy. It is a humble thing to stand before God and realize who he is. It is a frightening thing to stand before him and see who he is. It is a fearful thing to open up the Word of God and know this is the Lord. The one who opens up a seabed, rips it in half, puts the enemies of his children in the middle of it, and closes the curtains of death back on top of them. And here's the thing. It was simple for him to do so. It was as if he was lifting his pinky off the ground. It was nothing. It was not a showcase of his ultimate might. It was merely an example of something that he is able to do. That is the God that we serve. That is the God that we worship. That is the God that we know. So you get to verse 30. Those last two that I say. I know, I gotta go, I gotta run. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the great power which the Lord had used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Only mere verses before this, what is Israel saying? Time and time and time and time and time again. What are you doing this for? Why have you brought us here? Are you even listening? Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us in this way, bringing us out of Egypt? And all along the way, understand this, all along the way, God is putting up pieces, and he is setting up pieces to show, I got this. I'm in control. You're going to worship me. You're going to glorify my name. You're going to know my strength. You're going to know my power. And they go from overnight when Israel saw the great powers the Lord had used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord. Is there any difference, aside from the salvific difference, between Egypt and Israel? No. They both fear God. Don't you see what God is doing in the world? Whether it be in the next 5 minutes, whether it be at the end of time, whether it be at your deathbed, whether it be at the non-believer's deathbed, at some point, all creation bows to Him. At some point, all creation fears Him. At some point, all creation knows the truth about Yahweh. We read in the final book, which I was encouraged by Daniel's inclusion of speaking on Revelation last week. We see this wonderful picture of worship. There's not going to be an option, by the way. Revival will be no option. There will be some who will be saved. There are some who are not saved. But what we do know, what we absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt, is that every knee is going to bow. And every tongue is going to confess that Christ is Lord. That includes non-believers. By the way. It's funny to call them non-believers at that point. It includes those who will not be saved. There's a song that I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm going to butcher the lyrics. Speaking about the great fear of God. And it's the Lord talking to the world and demanding His worship, saying, I am worthy. You're going to worship me forever. And the Lord is speaking to the people of the world, and for those who do bow the knee, they glorify God, and He tells those who refuse, you will bow at my feet, or I will rip out your knees. This is the reality of our God. There will be no option. The only choice we have is how are we going to be obedient to Him. At the end of the day, God will be glorified.
Of course, before we take part in this incredibly special moment in time together as a corporate body, I strongly encourage us all to listen to the words found in 1 Corinthians 11. Therefore, whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But a man must examine himself, and in so doing he is to eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he who eats and drinks judgment to himself, if he does not judge the body rightly. stand for the Lord's Supper. We read from the Word of God, the Lord Jesus, in the night in which he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, he took the cup also after supper, saying, This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me."